Dramatic new footage is showing how the Greek Coast Guard is pushing migrants back in the Aegean Sea towards Turkish waters. Ankara condemned the move by Greece, saying the most recent pushback also violated Türkiye's territorial waters. The actions by Greece is the latest in a string of incidents that have severely strained ties between the two neighbours. The drone footage released last week by Türkiye's defense ministry shows a Greek Coast Guard vessel pushing back two life rafts just 1.5 kilometers from Turkish shores. And just this past week, the Turkish Coast Guard rescued more than 100 migrants near its western coast of Izmir after they were pushed back by Greece. International rights groups have criticized Greece's actions for years, saying they violate international law. Also earlier this month, the European Commission gave a stern warning to Athens, saying it must stop the violent and illegal pushback of migrants. So will the international community's pressure on Greece lead to changes? And how will this latest incident harm already tense relations between Ankara and Athens? And to discuss the migrant pushbacks by Greece, joining me now is Zuhal Mert Uzuner from Istanbul. She's an associate professor at Marmara University. And from Palm City, Florida, Stephen Horrell. He is a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. A warm welcome to you both. It's good to have you on the program. So, Zuhal, Greece's violent pushbacks of refugees seem to be increasing, and the European Union has repeatedly warned Athens to stop this practice, but that doesn't seem to be working. Why have these pushbacks risen?
Because this movement, the flow of the immigrants and the refugees are considered as an existential threat, according to let's say the Athens. Greek government considered that this is an important mission to protect the EU borders against this, let's say, the silent invasion. They call it as it. So that's why this protection activities are considered somehow something necessary, according to the Greek government. But on the other side, there are some rules and international regulations about how to treat and what to do about this, let's say, the arriving people to the islands. So we know that since the beginning, Greek people, ordinary people, were trying to help somehow, and they are blocked by the Greek officials for these helping activities. That's why you can find many different explanations, reports, what's happening in Aegean Sea against this, the flow of the refugees. Mm-hmm. And we know that this is a kind of official choice. The existing government, Greek government, have such kind of choice to protect the European, in quotation, let's say, the border against this flow of immigrants.
Yes. So I just want to play a part of his speech that Tineke Strik, a Dutch politician and a member of the European Parliament, said about Greece's actions while Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis was in attendance.
If asylum seekers try to enter this Europe through your country, their rights are brutally trampled. They are pushed into the Turkish waters and land. Migrants are even forced to push back other migrants. And the border guards are masked men putting lives at risk enjoy impunity, but those who save lives are convicted. And therefore I ask you, Mr. Mitsotakis, is this Europe?
So, Stephen, Athens denies the accusations, criticizing the lack of solidarity of the EU member states in dealing with the refugee influx. How realistic is this?
Clearly, you saw a difference in opinion within the European Parliament there. I'd highlight that one issue, it's not isolated, the issue of migrants and Europe and how to properly treat asylum seekers, but at the same time to defend that border of Europe. It's not just in the Eastern Mediterranean, it's in the Central Mediterranean with migrants coming from Africa. And this is a concern for a lot of European countries. It's playing out obviously localized here. I think a key issue is the border where you have two NATO allies, but a border between the European Union and outside the European Union.
Yes, so Zuhal, the Turkish government has come out strong and condemned the latest pushbacks by Greece, saying they violated the Turkish territorial waters. Are Tensions set to worsen between the two neighbors.
Yes, you're right. The situation getting worse every day, and the flow of people, let's say the refugees, started to make it much more difficult because at the end, this flow is considered a kind of, as I mentioned before, a silent invasion, and that's why it must be somehow stopped according to the Greek government. And in this invasion, Turkish government and Turkish authorities are considered somehow related with this flow. And that's why coming into the Turkish territorial waters will increase more and more this tension, because we have already a tension about the delimitation in Aegean Sea. And it is getting worse because of this situation. And
Yes, Stephen, you said you hope tensions will not worsen, but it's not with migrant pushbacks where tensions between Türkiye and Greece are rising. Earlier this year, Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis made a provocative visit to the United States that Ankara says was trying to block the sale of F-16 fighter jets and modernization kits. And recently, the U.S. House of Representatives approved a legislation that set out conditions for to ensure F-16 sold to Ankara would not be used to violate Greece's airspace. What's your take on this move?
So I would highlight one thing. What that amendment from the House of Representatives said is that it required the executive branch, the White House, to certify certain things about the use of those F-16s if they're sold to Turkey. Backing up from the Madrid summit, President Biden said he was moving forward with the sale of these F-16s, while not a quid pro quo for Turkey's agreement to move ahead with Finland and Sweden's accession to NATO, obviously very related. So what we see here in some ways is a tug of war between the White House and Congress. And I'd note as well, that was the House of Representatives. That bill is not finalized, the National Defense Authorization Act, and you'll sometimes have a tug of war between the House of Representatives and the Senate. So that still remains to be seen what needs to be done to ensure the F-16 sales can move forward.
But Stephen, how do you think the Biden administration will act moving forward? I mean, would Biden risk his political capital to convince Congress in dropping this amendment?
It's possible he could. Again, his words coming out of the Madrid summit were that he was ready to move forward. He was going to move forward, but that he did have to get it through Congress. Again, there's a lot of factors at play, and very frequently issues like this are one of many. And it was one of many amendments to the House version of the National Defense Authorization Act, which ends up getting an awful lot of things attached to it for individual members or small number of members' interests for themselves or for their constituents.
So, Zuhal, on the other hand, Turkey is set to resume drilling operations in the Mediterranean next month with the Abdülhamit Han drilling ship. Are tensions between Türkiye and Greece set to rise again? What's your take on this?
Yes, I expect another rise again in this the bilateral tension. Already you can find many different comments and explanations in the Greek TVs and in Greek official, let's say the discourses. So they expect this tension, and they are trying to find out different way of responses to this maneuvers in Eastern Mediterranean, because it's considered a very important provocation according to Greek government, and they may step on some other let's say the maneuvers that can create a serious tension. What I know until today, we were observing several discussions in Greek TV programs, and they were all talking about a probable hot conflict in between Greece and Turkey, just because of this expansion of this territorial waters to 12 miles or more than 6 miles, which is already considered as a reason of war, casus belli. So, as a kind of response to this existence of Abdülhamit Han ship in these waters, if they do this kind of the reaction by expansion of these territorial waters,
Yes.
that could be a really tenuous result.
So, Stephen, what kind of ramifications are we likely to see in the Eastern Mediterranean when the new drilling ship starts exploration activities? And what kind of a message do you think does Türkiye want to send both to Greece and regional powers?
So the potential for rising tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean is obviously critical. And frankly, from the U.S. perspective, there's no interest in having two NATO allies having this level of tensions or worst case, potentially conflict. So I think the best thing possible would be to find any way possible, any potential common ground, any confidence building measures to lessen the tensions, especially because there's so many factors, as we've talked about, the drilling, other delimitation issues, and as we led with the migrants.
Well, but it seems both sides are unwilling to change their positions. Stephen and Zuhal, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.